How's it going, everyone? So I'm just here sipping on my tonic herb elixir. It's actually my second one for the day. It's currently 2 p.m. noon in the middle of my day. And I figured I'd make a video talking about one of my favorite tonic herbs of all time, Gynostemma. So I actually made a video about this particular topic over the weekend. But after rewatching the video, I sounded just like I don't even know, like super high and not making any sense at all. Promise y'all that's not the case. However, didn't like the way it turned out, so I put that on private. And I'm going to make a better video now and get clear and concise and to the point. So, Gynostemma. Okay, so I've been taking Gynostemma since 2014, 2015. I've taken all sorts of different loose leaf varieties of Gynostemma extracts of many different types. And the highest quality Gynostemma that I've ever tried was definitely Hyperion Herbs. They sold a top shelf organic loose leaf variety that when it came, the leaves were actually kind of like formed in a very unique way that I haven't found in other Gynostemmas. Other Gynostemmas are just kind of like messy and just uncoordinated and whatnot, but these were kind of like rolled into little balls essentially, right? And so Hyperion Herbs Gynostemma was definitely the best that I've ever tried. However, they had to quit selling the loose leaf Gynostemma for various reasons, which you can discover by going to Brandon Gilbert's YouTube page and listening to his recent video. But recently I started to double down on Gynostemma standardized extracts. And so I'm going to get into that here in a little bit. But I've been taking Gynostemma for a long time. And it's definitely one of the most potent adaptogenic herbs or tonic herbs that I've ever taken. Okay, so Gynostemma is very interesting. It's become very popular, especially in the last 5 years, right? Interestingly, before 2015, not a lot of people were talking about it besides Brandon Gilbert and Ron Teagarden, actually. In fact, I think Brandon Gilbert from Hyperion Herbs was the only person who had videos on Gynostemma, and he was kind of pioneering what is now seeming to be a trend, actually. Lots and lots of people are on the Gynostemma train now. And one of the reasons why Gynostemma is so popular is because it has over 5 times the adaptogenic compounds as something like ginseng or astragalus, right? So with ginseng, for example, the active constituents in which it's usually standardized to, and what is commonly thought of to be the active ingredient or whatever, the most, that gives you the actual benefits of the ginseng is ginsenosides. Usually ginseng standardized to ginsenosides. And that's usually the big area of discussion when we're talking about ginseng's effects on the body. And a lot of the research is talking more so about ginsenosides rather than the whole plant outside of historical context, just depending on, but most of the research is funded by some of the patented versions of ginseng extracts, right? Like the GS15 or whatever, or was it Ginsa or whatever? There's actually a couple of patented extracts of ginseng now. And so those are more focusing on ginsenosides. But anyway, ginsenosides are, what's commonly touted to be the main active constituent of ginseng that gives us its effects, right? And so a lot of these adaptogenic herbs, they have saponins and other phytochemicals that they're standardized to and that are, thought to be the main components of it, right? Anyway, with Gynostemma actually has I think it was over 80 different ginsenoside-like compounds, something to that extent, or over 80 different adaptogenic compounds, saponins and various other phytonutrients that exert adaptogenic qualities. Everything from strengthening your body's endogenous glutathione production, helping to resensitize the dopamine pathways, right? As well as boosting immunity through multiple different mechanisms, or balancing out blood sugar. These are all benefits that Gynostemma has been used for thousands of years. And really, things like dopamine and glutathione, these are things that have been found out in the last 20 years or so, and have been backed by anecdotal reports and historical uses. But lots of these phytochemicals in Gynostemma, and many of which have been found to be almost identical to ginseng, okay? And so a lot of people think of Gynostemma as on par with ginseng, and in some ways even better, especially considering it has 4 to 5 times the amount of these adaptogenic compounds, right? Or of these active phytochemicals, like however you want to think of them as, right? Essentially, I would prefer to keep them labeled as like a broad class, like a broad class of components inside the plant that exert beneficial qualities, right? A lot of people overgeneralize phytonutrients as just universally good, right? But if you've listened to a lot of my videos in recent times, you'll know that I don't think it makes any sense to spend a bunch of money trying to get all this spinach and kale and broccoli in your diet because I don't believe there's a lot of, beneficial compounds in those foods just because they're plants and they have phytochemicals. Not all phytochemicals are created equally. It's just, there's a lot worse things in those plants than good things, right? But with things like ginseng and Gynostemma actually has very potent health boosting qualities that you can feel really within like the first 30 minutes to an hour of consuming it. That makes it well worth its bang for its buck, right? Instead of investing all your money and just increasing the general amount of phytochemicals in your diet through these various plant foods, which tend to cause a lot of people a lot of digestive distress, especially when you increase fiber in dramatic quantities. Instead of doing all that, I think it makes more sense to focus on the most nourishing foods that you actually enjoy eating. And personally, I think basing your diet mostly on animal protein, whole animal protein, to get the majority of your nutrients. And then if you're looking for like so-called superfoods or phytochemicals that take your energy and your well-being and your immunity and your health to the next level, I think that so-called nirvana of health everyone is seeking or obsessing about, I think that's found in these plants like Gynostemma, right, or ginseng. So anyway, a broad range of different benefits from a lot of these phytochemicals, and obviously they're in a whole nother world than a simple food like broccoli or kale. Obviously, those nowhere near the potency of Gynostemma. In fact, not even the same conversation. But a lot of people don't understand, right? So with Gynostemma, a lot of the benefits on like helping to resensitize dopamine receptors, like not really sure how familiar a lot of people are with these kind of concepts, right? But I've done a lot of digging with Gynostemma because I've seen a lot of very unique experiences on all sides of the coin with people that drink it. Like you'll find quite a few people posting about how Gynostemma seems to have like changed their life. Increasing euphoria and motivation and drive and giving energy like they never had before, and productivity and stuff like that. Some people claim that the effects are short-lived, and other people insist it's prolonged and had like a life-changing effect over the long term. I've seen people claim that Gynostemma helped them get over hard drug addiction, right? After they got off drugs, they claim that Gynostemma helped them to, get their brain chemistry back to like a healthy state, where cravings are gone and they're able to have energy and focus without, trying to get for drugs or anything like that. So that's pretty profound. And I think a lot of the things that people talk about Gynostemma improving in regards to, focus and dopamine and drug addiction. So you'll see that. So I actually dug and I found on an old forum that is called Launch City, right? Old forum from back in the day, like late 1990s, early 2000s. Focus on biohacking and longevity and stuff like that. Nutraceuticals and other things. It was really what biohacking has kind of become now, right? And I found a lot of people talking about Gynostemma in there, and I found one post where they had like a study. They posted a study, kind of suggesting that Gynostemma can help the brain to release or relieve excess serotonin, right? And that's really a simplified way of just saying that it balances out your neurochemistry in a way that favors a healthy amount of dopamine and, sort of suppressing whatever serotonin you definitely don't need. Now, that is very, very nuanced, obviously. And really, I've moved away a lot from this kind of technical jargon speak because in practical application, it's kind of meaningless. But, and also we have to keep in mind, like, serotonin isn't just good or bad, or isn't just like, the lethargy neurotransmitter or the fatigue neurotransmitter or anything like that. Serotonin has a lot of different actions depending upon what receptor sites it's acting on and where in the brain and where in the body as well, because it's not just in the brain but the gut and other parts of the body that it acts upon. Same thing with dopamine, and there's multiple types of dopamine receptors, and it's a lot more complicated than just, dopamine is a motivation neurotransmitter and serotonin is this and that, right? It's so complicated that it's better to just keep it as simple as possible for practical usage, right? A lot of people use a lot of mechanistic jargon to try to explain the mechanisms of things. And most of the studies that it's based on are test tube studies, using an isolated rat liver or something like that, and using one saponin from Gynostemma on the rat liver and exerting an effect in a test tube. And then you don't really see any practical relevance to a real living human who's consuming the whole Gynostemma plant, right? So, but anyway, point is though, lots of mechanistic evidence suggests that Gynostemma can tip the neurochemistry away from some of the lethargy and the fatigue and the brain fog and anhedonia type effects of that are associated commonly with things like excess serotonin, and maybe blunted cortisol and things like that, and maybe excess prolactin and whatnot, right? And can actually tip brain neurochemistry more in favor of increasing the sensitivity of dopamine receptors themselves, to where if you burnt out your dopamine receptors on with using caffeine or using like hard drugs or something, consuming Gynostemma, especially in the newly released high-potency 12-to-1 Gynostemma extract from Hyperion herbs. Serving size is about the size of a rice grain, which is interesting way of dosing that, and very potent to use such a small dose and have such a profound effect, because it's standardized at 30% gypinosides. But that over time, your tolerance for a lot of these drugs and the effects they had on your brain seems to kind of reverse with using Gynostemma. Now, that will translate into more, obviously more motivation, productivity, focus, and then getting more out of the smaller stimulants that you do take. How does this happen though? Like, what is the mechanism of action? So what I found with Gynostemma, looking through the research and things, is that Gynostemma seems to upregulate your body's endogenous antioxidants. So things like glutathione and superoxide dismutase. Gynostemma seems to take those endogenous antioxidants and help your body to make that response more robust. And you have more powerful glutathione and superoxide dismutase response, which has a whole cascade of benefits or effects, positive effects on things like NMDA and glycine, okay? And helping to nullify excess glutamate. So I think this is probably actually where a lot of this, where the mechanism of action really lies, right? Is excess glutamate tends to be that jittery, unhealthy effect you might get from something like coffee or a really excessive kind of sugar bump, right? Or, even in things like people, seizures and things seem to have a link to excess glutamate, and drug withdrawal and things like that, or, insomnia, chronic insomnia, ruminating thoughts, lots and lots of these things, right? It's just that edginess, the edgy, unhealthy feeling, right? And tends in excess amounts to be neurotoxic. So anyway, I believe that there might be similar mechanisms of action underlying the resensitization of dopamine and the improvements in, your body's endogenous defenses and things, similar to something like agmatine sulfate or N-acetylcysteine, okay? So especially agmatine sulfate, it seems to have a lot of similar benefits that Gynostemma does. I'm not saying they do the same thing, but I'm just saying one of the main mechanisms of action with agmatine sulfate for things like drug addiction and improving circulation and all these things, improving mood and calmness, it seems to have something to do with its effects on glutathione, GABA, NMDA, glycine, and kind of like the cascade involved with all of that. And so typically what you'll find is consuming things like fish oil and even reishi in smaller amounts, and things like N-acetylcysteine, or even like taking glycine, and even something like Shilajit, right? But that's a whole nother discussion some other time. Some of these compounds that seem to have pretty good evidence for boosting glutathione and acting on NMDA and glycine, they tend to also have profound benefits on mood and dopamine and productivity and energy throughout the day, as well as things like soreness and recovery from physical stress and recovery from physical activity. Especially in the case of something like fish oil, where fish oil, if you get enough EPA, provides the building blocks to anti-inflammatory prostaglandins, right? Which directly counteract a lot of the symptoms of excessive soreness and break down byproducts of muscle damage and reactive oxygen species and things like that. And I feel like, again, this is kind of mechanistical jargon, but to give you all a model to think about it in a way, I've noticed when I do a lot of things that seem to create a lot of free radicals, hypothetically, right? Things like excessive training stress, like training hard, consuming a whole lot of like high glycemic load carbohydrates in one bolus, consuming, maybe a ton of like caffeine or something like that, or even being multiple days without sleep, right? They all have similar kind of feelings. They produce similar kind of feelings that I kind of seem to associate with excessive free radicals in the system, just hypothetically. And I notice when I consume compounds that are supposed to like have significant, they've been shown in the research to have significant kind of boosting properties on glutathione and antioxidants inside of your body, right? That it completely counteracts all of that, okay? Gynostemma seems to be one of those things. Obviously, fish oil is another thing. If you take enough of it, you need about 2 grams of EPA, okay? And then however much DHA comes with that. And don't just take DHA by itself. It has a similar effect. Things like N-acetylcysteine has a similar effect. And reishi had a similar effect too. And the best reishi that you can buy on the market is Hyperion Herbs for sure. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting. And things like L-theanine even, right? So, and when I first started taking Shilajit, it did as well, but eventually those effects changed. So be careful with Shilajit. I could make another video about that. I don't think I made an update video on Shilajit, but so yeah, I think Gynostemma's main benefit is improving the endogenous antioxidant status and really upgrading the organism. It's upgrading your body to be even more robust at handling things like, all sorts of compounds that bog your body down, and even maybe offset some of the contributions to things like cancer, for example, or heart disease even. So, and especially for exercise recovery, right? But the big kind of benefits from Gynostemma, really that I should have started off with, are things like calming, right? It has like a calming focus and subtle energy in the background type of effect. I would say it boosts vigor, right? Your body's kind of physical ability to be able to do things, but in a way that is grounding and calming at the same time. And if you take enough of it, it can also help you sleep for sure. I think, a lot of people may not be able to tolerate some of the more yang versions of a real ginseng, right? Or even tonic herbs that are more yang in nature. So things like, Panax red ginseng, for example. Panax red ginseng can be very stimulating for a lot of people, and especially because people don't dose it properly. A lot of fake crap on the market that actually doesn't even do anything. But if you get the good stuff and you take too much at the first dose, it will make you go crazy. A lot of people just can't handle that, and I think Gynostemma is definitely a much better alternative. And I think there's enough scientific evidence and enough anecdotal evidence to suggest that Gynostemma can be used as a more calming alternative for people, especially because it's more economical. It's a lot more affordable, but also it's more gentle and subtle for a large amount of people. Especially because most people are suffering from excess amounts of stress and stimulation and not enough sleep and things like that. Gynostemma is going to improve all those things, whereas something like Panax red ginseng might actually make a lot of people's issues worse. So yeah, helps to calm, helps to relax, de-stress, boost circulation, helps to balance blood sugar. And can be taken at any time during the day. It's not going to keep you awake at night, but it's also not going to make you feel jittery or super pumped up either when you take it in the morning. And different doses have different results and the different forms too. So I personally have taken all sorts of different forms. Loose leaf is great, but the last 4 weeks or so, give or take, something like 2 to 4 weeks, I've actually been consuming Hyperion Herbs Gynostemma extract, and they just put it on the website. Brandon Gilbert did last week, but I actually I was lucky enough and honored enough to be able to try the Hyperion Herbs Gynostemma extract like 3 weeks before it was posted on the website. So I've been taking it pretty extensively since then, right? It was funny because Brandon from Hyperion Herbs, he had told me to only take a rice grain amount, right? And of course, for me, I'm like, what the hell is a rice grain amount? The rice, like there's different, is it a medium grain, long grain, is a forbidden rice grain, a black rice grain, a purple rice grain, is it a freaking basmati rice grain, or is it like a regular, just like hybridized white rice grain? Like these things matter, Brandon, right? But so I was like, that's too vague. So I just took a whole 3/4 of a teaspoon, right? Which is probably like, I don't know, 20 times the dose that he told me to take, right? So that first day when I took that much, so this is a 12-to-1 extract of Gynostemma, and it's standardized at 30% gypenosides, if I'm not mistaken. So, I remember taking that before bed, and I felt I was like too wired and just wanting to do stuff to like go to sleep. Now, mind you, it might have been something else that I had taken during that day. I don't think it was, but I'm going to have to experiment with a high dose of it again just to see if it puts me to sleep or not, because a lot of these super potent Gynostemma extracts, if I take a super high dose, gives me some of the deepest sleep that you can ever ask for. But anyway, so that first night I took like way too much of it, and it definitely made me more productive and just not able to sleep because I just wanted to do a bunch of writing and creative activities, right? And a lot of people might find that very beneficial if they're like studying for college or something. I think this new extra potent Gynostemma extract, where the recommended dose is that of a rice grain, it's so damn potent, right? I think that would be the perfect herb for someone who's going through college and they also have athletic endeavors. It kind of covers all these different areas. And so, but when I took it down to like 1/8 of a teaspoon, maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon dosage, I definitely I remember it just felt calming, and I remember taking like maybe a 2-hour power nap, right? Like a 2-hour nap that was just super refreshing as well. And then waking up and just feeling ready for the day, right? So it's not a sedative, but if you need to sleep and you can sleep, it definitely helps with that. So really, really a fan of it, really big fan of it. So other things that Gynostemma can do is it has some pretty potent and beneficial effects on AMPK. And essentially what that can translate into is, you could think of it as training your body to utilize more energy from adipose tissue or body fat, which can have benefits on fat loss as well as exercise performance. So Gynostemma is something that I inadvertently had found seemed to improve my endurance pretty dramatically. Where once you start training, once you start doing whatever, high intensity interval training or like long distance, say running or something, I had noticed from my cardiovascular training, it just, going longer distance just felt good. It felt like my body was utilizing energy more effectively. I didn't feel this depleted feeling that you normally would feel when you are 20 to 30 minutes into a training session and you feel like you've utilized all your energy, which is kind of stupid because your body is supposed to have over like 60,000 calories worth of energy stored as body fat. But I definitely noticed I can go a lot longer, and my perceived exertion during training was a lot lower taking Gynostemma. I personally think a really good stack to take for training performance and focus and longevity, probably like you can call it like the God stack or something. I don't know, like the God Superhuman stack, right? Would be like if we're especially from Hyperion Herbs, because all the stuff is third-party tested. It's good when it's coming from Brandon Gilbert, because his whole reason he has this company is to make super high potency, the best forms of herbs available to the average human. Anyway, I don't think anyone can say they're average if they're into this type of stuff. This is like the top 1% of health and energy information in the planet, wellness and medicine information, right? Anyway, so I would say the Superhuman stack, right? For training and exercise performance, but also productivity, health, longevity, sleep, all that, right? You probably feel amazing if you did this. Would be start off in the morning at 1 rice grain dose of Gynostemma, okay, brewed with, we'll start off with a base of either maybe loose leaf Gynostemma, or I would say pu'er tea, yerba mate, black coffee, whatever your kind of brewed hot beverage of choice would be, right? I prefer a 50-50 coffee to yerba mate mix personally. Brew that in the Orgullosa. Brew that in your coffee maker. And then I would say a rice grain amount, like put it in a glass blender. I'd say a rice grain amount of Gynostemma, and put that in there, of the new Hyperion Herbs Gynostemma extract, a rice grain, right? And then a half a teaspoon to a whole teaspoon of, I would say maybe a half a teaspoon of Hyperion Herbs Cordyceps, put that in there. And then a half a teaspoon of Hyperion Herbs Polyrhacus Black Ant, okay, put that in there. And then maybe their new Mucuna Purins extract that Brandon just put on the website. You can maybe add like 1/8 of a teaspoon in there in the morning, right? Boom. Blend that together. Maybe put a little bit of honey in there or something like that, especially to offset the kind of blood sugar lowering effects of the Gynostemma. And drink that up first thing in the morning, and you have like a super potent morning elixir. And then before bed, I would say Hyperion Herbs Reishi, like about a half a teaspoon, maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon, but I think a half teaspoon is ideal. That alone would be like perfect, right? However, you could probably make the case for taking another dose of the Gynostemma or rice grain amount with the reishi before you go to bed, and just see if because the reishi should help you sleep and set you up for a good, energetic, and tranquil next day. But the Gynostemma, I would say you should experiment with in that regard for your sleep. And then the Mucuna that he released. Okay, so different doses are going to have different effects, and this is the highest potency, the highest quality brand you can get that he has. It's the white extract that I like a lot. Experimenting with different doses. At higher amounts, some people might actually feel tremendous, deep, restorative, calming sleep. So you might want to take the Mucuna before bed. Otherwise, it might actually just make you super motivated and productive to take a small amount in the morning with your morning elixir. But that would be how I would kind of navigate this and set it up. Obviously, Brandon Gilbert on Hyperion Herbs, on their website, they have a lot of different products, things like their lion's mane, which is the highest potency on the planet for its effects on physical changes in the brain and healing. I'm not, not a huge fan of the high potency lion's mane, just for other reasons I can talk about in another video. Chaga is really, really awesome for things like immunity, circulation, and stuff like that. I actually have Hyperion Herbs lion's mane and chaga sitting in my cabinet, but I kind of only use those for certain times of the year, certain purposes. But I would say that stack that I just outlined, probably the greatest thing for people that tune into my content and they're about all the stuff I talk about. That's probably going to give you a huge productivity boost and improve your training like nothing else, right? Improve your sleep and all that. And then if you really want to optimize it, and you want to make it more complicated, you can add either American ginseng in the morning or Panax red ginseng. And then just depending on your own constitution, right? People who want more energy boost and stimulation, the Panax ginseng. People want more calmness, the American, or put them together like I do, right? But honestly, I think for most people, especially with the problems people bring to me on my YouTube channel, I think just only taking like the Gynostemma, and then maybe taking some reishi before bed, is probably ideal. And then, adding other things, if you're an athlete, like the cordyceps and the Polyericus black ant is probably a good idea. And I will say, Hyperion Herbs Polyericus black ant is some of the best I've ever had. Very, very potent stuff. Anyway, leave your question, comments down below. Definitely try that Hyperion Herbs Gynostemma extract. I'll put a link in the description as well as my discount code. And the discount code mostly gives y'all like a 15 or a 20% discount, something like that, which is pretty significant, especially if you buy their bulk option, which also gives you like a 20% discount. You put my discount code on top of that, you get a pretty big discount. And honestly, I don't even know if the discount code even gives me money, but definitely will give you all a discount and whatnot. So definitely recommend using that. So anyway, let me know in the comments if y'all try Gynostemma and your experiences with it, and I'll talk to y'all next time.